When people grow old and look back on their journey, one of the deepest realizations they often have is that health and self-care should have been their top priority all along. In youth and middle age, it is easy to believe that energy and strength will always be there, that the body will keep running smoothly no matter how much we push it, and that the mind will somehow withstand all the stress we pour on it. But when years pass and health begins to decline, it becomes painfully clear that nothing can replace a strong body and a clear mind. Wealth, possessions, titles, and even achievements start to feel meaningless if you cannot enjoy them because of poor health. Elderly people often say that they wish they had exercised regularly, eaten healthier, avoided harmful habits, and listened to their body's signals much earlier in life. They wish they had invested in their health with the same seriousness as they invested in careers, businesses, or family responsibilities. The truth is that self-care is not selfish, it is survival. Many people grow up with the belief that sacrificing sleep, skipping meals, and overworking themselves is the path to success, but what they don't realize is that such habits silently rob them of years of healthy living. An elderly person who spent decades ignoring self-care might find themselves dependent on medications, struggling with chronic pain, or limited in mobility. These are the moments when they wish they had taken even 30 minutes a day to walk, stretch, or simply breathe. They realize that prevention is far easier and more rewarding than trying to reverse damage later on. Nutrition is another area where regret shows up. The younger years feel forgiving. You can eat anything and still bounce back quickly. But as the body ages, every unhealthy choice adds up. Seniors often wish they had respected their body enough to feed it with nourishing foods rather than processed items, excess sugar, or harmful substances. They come to understand that food is not just fuel but medicine for the body and mind. Balanced diets rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins could have prevented so many diseases they now struggle with. It is not about strict dieting but about respecting the body with mindful choices. They often share that if they could go back, they would treat every meal as an investment in their future well-being. Exercise is another form of self-care they regret overlooking. Movement is life, yet many only discover this truth when it is too late. Elderly people who did not make exercise a regular habit often find themselves with stiff joints, weak muscles, and fragile bones. On the other hand, those who stayed active in small but consistent ways enjoy greater independence in their later years. They can walk without support, travel, play with their grandchildren, and live without constant fear of falling. Many older adults admit that if they had only dedicated a little time daily to walking, yoga, or strength training, they could have avoided so many limitations that now define their daily existence. Beyond the physical, mental and emotional health are equally important parts of self-care. Seniors often recall how stress, anxiety, and unprocessed emotions dominated their younger years. Instead of taking care of their minds, they buried themselves in work or family pressures, not realizing that mental exhaustion takes as much of a toll as physical neglect. Later in life, they wish they had learned meditation, journaling, or even simple practices like deep breathing to handle stress better. They realize that inner peace does not just happen, it is built through consistent self-care of the mind. They often emphasize that protecting mental health is not a luxury but a necessity, because happiness and peace cannot exist in a mind that is constantly overwhelmed. Sleep is another area of regret. Many older people reflect on the years they considered sleep as wasted time, staying up late for work, entertainment, or endless scrolling through distractions. Now they know that proper rest was one of the most powerful tools for healing and energy renewal. Poor sleep habits often lead to long-term health issues like memory loss, heart problems, and weakened immunity. Elderly voices carry the reminder that sleep is not laziness, it is one of the purest forms of self-care the human body needs every single night. One of the most powerful lessons seniors share is that neglecting self-care is not just harmful to oneself but also to loved ones. When a person becomes sick or weak due to years of neglect, their family often carries the emotional and financial burden. Elderly people often express guilt that their lack of self-care has become a weight on their children or spouse. They emphasize that caring for your health is also an act of love for your family, because it allows you to be present, independent, and strong for as long as possible. Another aspect of self-care many elderly people wish they knew earlier is the importance of regular medical checkups and early detection. In youth, visiting a doctor often feels unnecessary unless there is obvious pain or illness. But as the years pass, undiagnosed conditions surface and sometimes become life-threatening. Seniors often regret ignoring small symptoms, brushing off fatigue, or avoiding medical tests. They realize that proactive health care could have saved them from advanced illnesses that are much harder to manage later in life. There is also a spiritual dimension to self-care. Many older adults share that true health is not just about the body but about harmony of body, mind, and spirit. Neglecting prayer, reflection, or spiritual practices often leaves people feeling empty and restless even when the body is fine. They highlight that spiritual self-care provides resilience, hope, and meaning, especially during hard times. Elderly wisdom often carries this reminder: caring for the soul is just as important as caring for the body. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. Health and self-care are not optional, not something to focus on after success or after retirement, but the very foundation of a meaningful life. Every other goal, dream, or relationship depends on the strength and clarity that come from a healthy body and mind. Elderly people, looking back with regret, often wish that younger generations would not repeat their mistakes. They encourage us to prioritize exercise, eat mindfully, rest deeply, protect our mental health, and maintain spiritual balance. They remind us that self-care is not about luxury routines or expensive treatments, it is about daily choices that honor the gift of life. And most importantly, they want us to know that it is never too late to start. Small changes today can create a healthier, happier tomorrow. When elderly people look back on their lives, one of the strongest realizations they share is that relationships and time with loved ones are far more valuable than wealth or material achievements. In the race for success, many spend their prime years chasing promotions, building businesses, or accumulating possessions, thinking that these will bring security and happiness. But as time passes and they reach an age where energy fades and days feel shorter, they begin to understand that the greatest treasures are not found in bank accounts or property holdings but in the moments shared with family, friends, and community. The warmth of companionship, the laughter of children, the comfort of a partner's presence, and the bonds of true friendship turn out to be the real wealth that sustains the heart. Many seniors express regret that they once sacrificed family dinners, school events, vacations, and even simple conversations for the sake of work or financial pursuits. They remember how they thought they would make time later, after retirement or after reaching a certain financial goal. Yet later often never comes. Children grow up quickly, parents age and pass away, friends drift apart, and opportunities to share life's simple joys disappear forever. They realize too late that while money can always be earned or replaced, lost time with loved ones can never be recovered. This awareness often brings a bittersweet longing, because although wealth may provide comfort, it cannot bring back the voices and faces of those who are gone. Relationships, unlike wealth, require constant nurturing. Elderly people often admit that they underestimated the importance of listening, forgiving, and showing appreciation. They recall times when pride, stubbornness, or small conflicts created distance with people they cared about, and how they thought there would always be time to mend things later. But later sometimes never arrives, leaving behind regrets about words unsaid and love unexpressed. They wish they had invested more effort in maintaining harmony and making their loved ones feel valued rather than assuming that relationships could survive without care. True happiness, they emphasize, lies in the quality of human connections, not in the size of one's possessions. Another realization they share is that memories, not money, bring joy in old age. When the body slows down and career titles no longer matter, what sustains the heart are the shared experiences, family gatherings, celebrations, travels, heartfelt conversations, or even small moments like cooking together or sitting in silence with someone you love. These are the treasures people carry in their hearts when everything else fades. Elderly people often find themselves flipping through photo albums or recalling stories, wishing they had created more of these moments rather than spending years consumed by financial stress. They wish they had seen earlier that memories are the real inheritance we leave behind for ourselves and for those we love. The value of relationships also becomes clearer when health declines. Seniors often notice that when they fall sick or face hardships, it is not wealth that comforts them but the presence of caring people. A kind word from a spouse, a visit from children, or the support of friends gives more relief than money ever could. They learn that in times of vulnerability, human bonds are the true safety net. Some realize too late that their obsession with money or career left them isolated, and while they may have financial stability, they lack the deep emotional support that comes only from years of nurturing genuine relationships. This is why many elders strongly advise younger generations to invest as much energy into relationships as they do into financial goals. There is also a recognition that wealth without relationships feels empty. Elderly people sometimes describe how lonely it feels to sit in a large house with luxuries but without meaningful companionship. The silence becomes heavier than the comfort wealth provides. They realize that sharing is what makes prosperity meaningful, sharing meals, sharing laughter, sharing burdens. Without someone to share life with, success feels hollow. They wish they had known earlier that true richness comes not from what you own but from who you have around you. Many also point out that relationships teach us lessons money never can. Through love, patience, conflict, and reconciliation, we grow as human beings. These experiences shape character, humility, and empathy. Elderly people often feel grateful for the bonds that taught them resilience and kindness, and they wish they had cherished those lessons more instead of focusing so heavily on career advancement or financial status. They often say that the wisdom they treasure most came not from books or business but from conversations with loved ones, moments of forgiveness, and the strength found in family ties. There is another powerful aspect they mention, the legacy we leave behind. At the end of life, people are not remembered for the size of their bank accounts but for how they treated others. Did they show kindness? Were they present for their families? Did they create joy for others? Elderly people often confess that they wish they had spent less time trying to prove themselves to society and more time simply being there for those who mattered. They realize that love and kindness are the only legacies that endure across generations. A child may forget the expensive gifts but will always remember the bedtime stories, the hugs, and the time shared together. Spending time with loved ones also has a healing power that wealth cannot provide. Elderly people recall how moments of laughter with friends or deep talks with family lifted their spirits during hard times. They wish they had valued these healing moments earlier, instead of assuming happiness lay in reaching the next financial milestone. True happiness, they realize, is found in companionship and belonging, not in external success. At the end of the day, elderly voices echo a common truth: relationships are the real currency of life. Wealth may build comfort, but relationships build meaning. They wish they had understood earlier that money is only useful when it supports love, togetherness, and shared happiness. They encourage the younger generations to put down their phones, pause their work, and spend more time with those who matter, because one day the people around them will not be there anymore. And on that day, it will not be the money they will wish they had more of, but the moments they could have shared. As people grow older and reflect on their journey, many come to realize that the truest form of peace in life does not come from endless achievements, possessions, or recognition, but from embracing simplicity, practicing gratitude, and living with kindness. These three values, though often overlooked in the rush of youth and middle age, become the very pillars of happiness in old age. Elderly people often say they wish they had known earlier that a simple life, filled with appreciation for what is present and compassion for others, could have spared them years of stress, envy, and dissatisfaction. They learn, sometimes late, that the external chase never ends, but the inner calm created by simplicity, gratitude, and kindness lasts a lifetime. Simplicity is a lesson many elders wish they had embraced earlier. In their younger years, they pursued bigger houses, newer cars, and endless material possessions, thinking that these would bring joy and status. But over time, they discovered that material things only add temporary excitement and often create more stress through debt, maintenance, or competition. When they look back, they see how much energy they wasted chasing things that did not truly matter. What they value now is freedom from excess, uncluttered spaces, and the ability to focus on what really brings peace, health, relationships, and meaningful moments. They often say that life becomes lighter when you stop complicating it with unnecessary desires and instead focus on living simply with what you need. In simplicity, they discovered clarity of mind and space for the things that truly nourish the soul. Alongside simplicity, gratitude plays a transformative role. Elderly people frequently share that gratitude could have changed their lives earlier if they had practiced it consistently. In their younger years, they often compared themselves with others, always wanting more, better jobs, bigger homes, greater success. That comparison bred stress and dissatisfaction. But in their later years, when they start appreciating the little things, the warmth of the sun, a kind word, the laughter of a child, or even the ability to breathe and walk, they realize that happiness was always available, just overlooked. Gratitude turns what we have into enough, and this shift in perspective is what brings inner peace. Seniors often wish they had known that gratitude is not about ignoring problems but about finding light even in small blessings. They regret not pausing more often in their busy lives to give thanks for what they already had. If they had done so, they believe their journey would have been calmer and far less burdened with dissatisfaction. Kindness is the third cornerstone that elderly people realize gives true meaning to life. They reflect on how acts of kindness, whether small gestures of help, comforting words, or generosity, bring lasting satisfaction, far more than any material possession. They see now that people remember kindness long after they forget success or wealth. The smile you gave a stranger, the time you spent with a lonely neighbor, or the patience you showed a loved one in a moment of weakness, these acts echo through lives in ways we cannot measure. Many seniors regret the times when pride, anger, or indifference held them back from being kind. They recall missed chances to forgive, moments when harsh words hurt relationships, or opportunities to help that they ignored because they were too busy. They now see that kindness would have cost them nothing but could have left a legacy of love. Another dimension they highlight is that simplicity, gratitude, and kindness are deeply connected. When you live simply, you need less, and your mind is free from the constant hunger for more. This makes it easier to be grateful, because you notice and appreciate what you already have. And when you are grateful, kindness flows more naturally, because your heart feels full rather than empty. Elderly people often describe this as a cycle of peace. Simplicity removes distractions, gratitude fills the soul, and kindness spreads that joy outward. They regret not realizing earlier that peace is built from within, not acquired from outside sources. Seniors often emphasize how much unnecessary stress comes from complicating life. In youth, people collect obligations, commitments, and possessions, believing they are signs of progress. But later, they find themselves weighed down by clutter, both physical and emotional. Simplicity could have freed them from that weight, giving them more time and energy for what truly matters. They now encourage younger generations to avoid overcommitting, to say no when necessary, and to choose experiences over possessions. A simple meal with loved ones, they say, carries more joy than an elaborate banquet eaten in loneliness. Gratitude, too, becomes more urgent in old age, especially as health declines or losses accumulate. Elderly people who practice gratitude often cope better with pain, loneliness, or limitations, because they focus on what remains rather than on what has been lost. They remind us that every stage of life carries blessings if we are willing to see them. A grateful heart can turn aging itself into a graceful process, because instead of mourning youth, one can celebrate wisdom, memories, and the presence of loved ones. Seniors often regret that they spent too many years complaining, comparing, or resenting, when they could have been celebrating small victories and appreciating the simple gift of life itself. Kindness, in their reflections, is often tied to the legacy they leave behind. Many elderly people express a strong realization that in the end, people will not remember what you owned but how you made them feel. They see now that kindness has the power to outlive them, as acts of love and compassion ripple through families and communities. They sometimes feel regret for not being softer, more forgiving, or more present, but they also find comfort in knowing that it is never too late to begin. They often encourage others to practice kindness daily, because every smile, every helping hand, and every moment of patience adds to a legacy that money cannot buy. There is also a spiritual aspect tied to these values. Simplicity, gratitude, and kindness are often seen by seniors as ways of aligning life with deeper truths. Simplicity quiets the noise of the world, gratitude connects you with the present moment, and kindness allows you to serve something greater than yourself. Many elderly people feel that when they finally embraced these values, they found not only personal peace but also a sense of connection with life's greater purpose. They wish they had understood earlier that true peace is not a destination but a way of living, built through daily choices that prioritize what matters most. The combined wisdom of seniors teaches that peace is within reach if we choose to let go of excess, give thanks for what we have, and treat others with compassion. They remind us that time passes quickly, and the earlier we adopt these values, the more fulfilling our lives will be. They emphasize that these are not grand philosophies reserved for old age but practical tools to make every day lighter and happier. A simple choice to declutter, a daily moment to express gratitude, and a kind gesture toward someone in need. These are the building blocks of a peaceful life. One of the most powerful lessons elderly people share is that life remains meaningful, exciting, and full of growth when we continue to take risks and never stop learning. Many older adults look back and realize that fear held them back from pursuing dreams, exploring opportunities, or speaking their truth. They often wish they had taken more chances in their younger years, because as they grow older, the weight of "what if" becomes heavier than the memory of any failure. At the same time, they realize that continuous learning, no matter the stage of life, keeps the mind sharp, the spirit young, and the journey fulfilling. These two values, courage to take risks and commitment to lifelong learning, are what make life vibrant even as the years pass. When elderly people reflect, they often admit that fear of failure, judgment, or uncertainty stopped them from following their passions. Some wanted to start a business but stayed in jobs they disliked for the sake of security. Others dreamed of traveling, writing, or creating art but postponed it endlessly, waiting for the right time. In hindsight, they see that the right time never truly comes, and waiting only leads to regret. They often say they would rather have faced failure and learned from it than carry the burden of unfulfilled dreams. The greatest risks, they explain, are not the ones that end in mistakes but the ones never attempted at all. Elderly wisdom shows that taking risks does not always mean grand gestures like starting a company or moving to a new country. Sometimes the most meaningful risks are simple: being honest about feelings, forgiving someone who hurt you, or stepping outside of comfort zones to try new experiences. They regret the times they let comfort and routine control them, because routine, while safe, often dulls the spirit. They emphasize that even small risks, taken consistently, create growth and open doors to joy that would otherwise remain closed. They wish they had realized earlier that failure is not the opposite of success but a necessary part of it. In the same way, seniors highlight the importance of continuous learning. Many admit that they stopped challenging their minds after finishing school or building their careers, and in doing so, they limited their potential. Later in life, they discovered that learning is not confined to classrooms but is a lifelong journey. Whether it is picking up a new hobby, reading books, exploring technology, or learning from conversations with others, the act of learning keeps the brain alive and curiosity burning. Those who never stopped learning often feel younger at heart, more adaptable to change, and more capable of handling life's challenges. They realize that growth does not stop with age. The human spirit is designed to evolve until the very end. Elderly people often stress how much joy learning brings, especially in later years. They find that trying new skills, like painting, gardening, or even using modern devices, gives them a sense of purpose and achievement. Some discover passions they never knew they had because they finally allowed themselves the freedom to explore. They wish they had done this earlier, because learning not only enriches the mind but also deepens self-awareness and builds resilience. They regret that in youth, they saw education only as a tool for earning money instead of as a path to personal fulfillment. Taking risks and learning are also closely connected. Each time a person takes a risk, they step into the unknown, and that unknown becomes a lesson. Elderly people often say their greatest personal growth came not from their successes but from their mistakes and failures. These experiences taught them resilience, humility, and adaptability, qualities that later carried them through life's toughest challenges. They regret avoiding risks because by doing so, they missed out on valuable lessons that could have shaped them earlier. They now see risk not as danger but as opportunity disguised in uncertainty. Another insight they share is that society often pressures people to play safe, find stable jobs, stick to routines, avoid mistakes. But in old age, they realize that too much safety can lead to stagnation. The people who lived the most fulfilling lives, in their view, are not those who avoided risks but those who embraced them wisely. These individuals have richer stories, deeper wisdom, and fewer regrets. Seniors often wish they had cared less about societal approval and more about their own inner calling. They encourage younger generations to be brave enough to follow their hearts, even when the path is uncertain, because in the end, it is better to have scars from living fully than emptiness from never trying. Continuous learning also plays a role in relationships. Seniors often notice that people who kept learning were better at adapting to changing times, understanding younger generations, and maintaining meaningful connections. Those who closed themselves off, refusing to learn new ideas or perspectives, often grew isolated. Lifelong learners remain curious, empathetic, and open-minded, which allows them to connect across ages and cultures. They realize too late that learning is not just about knowledge but about staying connected to the ever-changing world. Elderly people also connect this wisdom to personal freedom. Taking risks teaches independence, because it shows you that you can survive challenges. Learning teaches empowerment, because it gives you tools to navigate life's complexities. Together, they create a sense of confidence that allows you to face the unknown without fear. Many seniors regret not building this confidence earlier, because fear kept them dependent on security and routine. They now understand that courage and curiosity together create a life of richness that no amount of money or safety can provide. There is also a spiritual element to this wisdom. Taking risks often requires faith, in oneself, in others, or in a higher power. Learning requires humility, the willingness to admit you do not know everything. Elderly people often feel that these qualities bring them closer to the essence of life. They see that living fully means trusting enough to take leaps and remaining humble enough to keep learning. They regret the years they lived with fear and pride, thinking they knew enough or that they were not capable of more. In hindsight, they realize that life always rewards the brave and the curious. Ultimately, the lesson seniors wish they had known earlier is that meaning comes from movement, not from standing still. Risks and learning both push us forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. They encourage younger generations to embrace challenges, try new things, ask questions, and never let fear or age stop them. Because in the end, what matters is not how many times you failed but how many times you dared to try, and not how much you knew but how much you kept seeking to learn.